Good afternoon, fancy folk. Welcome back to Wisdom Wednesdays. This is episode 8. We are here to bring you sand carving maintenance on CrystalBlast sand carvers. Dr. Finegrit here. Do you want to say hello to everyone?
Hello again. Welcome back to episode number 8. And we're going to cover blaster maintenance. So I got a blaster here on my right or my left, depending on where you're looking at it. And we're going to cover some tips and tricks. And I want to hear some good feedback from everyone because everyone has a different situation, whether it's a different air compressor or a different sand carving machine. So there's going to be good feedback on what we can cover. So without further ado, we're going to cover Sandcarver maintenance and do a good Q&A afterwards. Enjoy. Hi, Darren here, Dr. Finegrit, also known as out there. I just wanted to show you some maintenance tips during this time, just to help you along, make sure your process is more efficient when you get back to normal here. One thing I want to mention is the sequence. That's very important when you get operational. The way it works is you have your air coming in from your air compressor. You want that to be 120 PSI feeding the foot pedal, right? That's first. Make sure your regulator on your compressor is 120 or more. The next thing is you want to pressurize your pot first, which is this vessel. So you pressurize it. So your gauge is going to go where you have it set at previously. So this one's set at, let's say, 30. All right. The reason why you pressurize the pot first before you turn on the dust collector is you can hear for any air loss. Let's say you had a quick disconnect in the back. That might have sprung a slight leak, or maybe the hose maybe has a slight tear. So you start leaking air. So that pressure is not going to the foot pedal any longer, right? It's going elsewhere. So it's important to hear that because you're going to hear any kind of air loss. Kind of like air out of a tire on a car. You're going to hear that air loss. So once you pressurize the pot, there's no air loss anywhere to be heard on the machine. The next step is to turn your light switch. And that's going to turn on your dust collector on as well. Now, at the end of the day or at the end of a shift, so you're not going to blast for a long period, then you turn the light switch off. But you can keep the pot pressurized. Okay? Keep the pot pressurized. It's not going to hurt the machine unless you're going to leave it for days upon days or overnight. You don't want to be doing that. But keep the pot pressurized if you're going to be away for a few minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it may be. Okay, just not overnight, of course. The reason for that is because when you depressurize, you're pulling air back into your airlines a lot, and that could create stress over time. So just a little tip to eliminate stress on your airlines, your hoses, your fittings, and that. Keep the pot pressurized throughout your day, and you'll have better success. So yeah, that's basically the gist of it there. So when you're done for the day, you turn your dust collector light off, you depressurize the machine, so no more air to be found in the machine now. Then you go back to your air compressor and just shut the emergency ball valve off so you don't have any air that could leak overnight. If you wanted to, you can drain your air compressor at that point. A little drain cock in the bottom to empty it at the end of your day. That's a good thing to do as well. So again, just a little routine to help you throughout your day to be, have your top of the line unit still working like it should be. All right, another nice maintenance tip with the machines is how to control the abrasive. So here I blasted a glass block with Blazer Orange laser mask. So let's say I ran out of abrasive, okay? No problemo, okay? We got a solution for that. All you have to do is depressurize the pot. The two-way valve takes out all the air within seconds, so it's a very quick release of air out of the pot. Next step is down below, you push on this black ball, and it's a spring-loaded seal. So it is a little compression to get it open, but the abrasive is falling from the hopper down into the pot. This takes maybe 10 seconds to refill. So we're gonna hold that in, and then we're gonna pull that out. So spring loaded, okay? And that's important because spring loaded is gonna last longer over time versus air powered seals. So you shouldn't have any trouble with your pot seal at all with this machine. So the next thing you wanna do is check your dust in your dust collector, okay? Even though our machines have reclaimers on them and it separates the dust from the abrasive, and the abrasive lasts quite a long time, you still want to make sure you check this cap. You can remove it maybe once a week just to start out. See how much is in there. Chances are it's going to be just a half a cup full of, I call it flour or baking soda. It's very fine powder. And that's because of the efficiency of the machines. But you want to basically just, empty it out once a week. Maybe, if you notice like that much cup in there, maybe go once a month next time, and so forth. It may take quite a while to get up to this level of dust. Okay. We do have also kits that mount to the dust collector that go to a bucket. So it go right from the dust hopper right to a bucket. So it's easier discharge. Another common question I get is I've heard this out there is when people remove a cap full of dust, they think they got to put a cap full of abrasive in the machine to keep it full. That's somewhat okay. I mean, problem is dust is fluttered and it's not the same weight. So that tends to work. You put a cup in there a day just to keep the abrasive fresh and sharp. If you want to add a little bit beyond that, a couple cups a day, that's actually a good method to get into if you're doing volume work every day. All right. So those are just a couple tips on how to add abrasive, how to remove your dust in your dust collector. The other thing I want to mention is how to clean your dust collector filter. All right. This machine has two methods and a combination to create three. When you're blasting for a long period like I do, your hands in there, you're blasting for quite a while. You got this little reverse pulse up above. While you're blasting, you hit this reverse pulse. And what that does is it shoots 90 pounds of air pressure onto the filter. So it shakes it to release all the dust and get back into the dust hopper. So you hit this, a couple times. It takes 4 full times of hitting to get the dust from the top of the chamber to the bottom. So you got to hit at least 4 times an hour, 4 times a day. It also develops on how much time of blasting you're doing. All right, so let's say I'm blasting this blazer orange piece. Okay. Now if I'm going to town here and I got a few hundred pieces I'm doing, and I'm like, I haven't done any dust collection cleaning yet. So with the dust collector still on, you hit this reverse pulse. Okay? So you just basically blast like this. You guys should hit the reverse pulse right in the middle of a blast as well, just to clean the filter. Okay? So the rule of thumb is you want to hit this reverse pulse at least 4 times an hour or 4 times a day. It depends on your volume. But 4 times to get the dust from the top of the filter to the bottom. So that's what you would do to clean the filter as you're blasting continuously. But the feature we did add on a lot of our machines, I'll turn the dust collector off for this because that's what you're supposed to do. So all the air is now concentrated to this valve. It's called a pneumatic filter vibrator. And if you look here, we have a label there too. And this is with the machine off, air on, of course, because air is what's going to clean the filter. So you basically, at this point, flip the toggle, and the air is continually shaking this filter inside the dust collector. So I put my hand here, I can feel it vibrating pretty heavily. So that dust is falling off the filter slowly but surely down to the dust hopper down below. So this is completely hands-free, and you can do this once a day, once a week. The beauty of it is you forget to do the reverse pulse cleaning throughout your day. Do this at the end of your day. Do it at the end of your week, end of your month, whatever it may be. You got to do it at least once. Just let it go. So you want to go about 2 minutes at the most. If you go above the 2-minute apart. You know, filters isn't vibrating so much. There's nuts and bolts in there that might loosen up. I'll show you in a minute how to do that. How to One last tip is when you do your filter vibrator or even a reverse pulse, all that vibration is shaking the dust off. So over time, you know, things start to sag, especially if you don't clean your filter for a long period. Those filters get heavy and they start to sag. So when they start to sag, that means dust is going to find weak spots and get through and get into your air circulation and cause issues. So one little tip that I recommend, I have plenty of these at my desk. Put additional rubber washers between your nuts and your bolts. And you tighten on them really tight so you have a little bit more cushion. So if it drops a little bit, you still got a little bit more protection in there from dust seeping through. So if you want additional rubber washers from me, just let me know. Be happy to get some to you. I got a whole bag full. You know, again, make sure you leave one, you need at least one in there. And that's another point. So one rubber washer down below, right between the filter bracket and your filter. There should be a rubber washer between the metal washer and your filter housing. So again, these little guys are going to keep your shop clean. It's going to keep your process efficient. And like I said, I got them. You need them. Thank you. Another maintenance tip with any kind of Sandcarver is there's going to be wear on the machine. And the most common wear part is the nozzle. If you look here, it's a nice round shape because I just put it on there. And the way you can tell if it's a good nozzle is you grab a drill bit. This is a 3/32 drill bit. That whole opening is a 3/32 opening. So what you do, if you know, just to be 100% sure, you put the drill bit in there. If it wobbles, because sometimes the wear might be inside where instead of on the outside, so it's kind of an internal kind of a pocket where the abrasive is going to clump up and create kind of bursts of abrasive. So this is a good little method. So stick a long drill bit that's at least the length of your nozzle and then just see if it wiggles. If it wiggles, you got to replace the nozzle. If it doesn't wiggle, you're good to go. So another tip with these is rotate it a quarter turn a day. So you want to turn the whole assembly, just turn a quarter turn. That gives it even wear. So quarter turn, an hour, quarter turn a day, whatever you can remember with. The hole is going to remain round. You don't get those pockets that abrasive and air is going to accumulate into and create like an explosion, which doesn't work very well. So, and then the last tip is if your foot pedal doesn't work, that's the first place to check is your nozzle. Because if your nozzle's gotten so big, you're going to be sucking more air from your air compressor. So the compressor may not be able to keep up, especially if it's a smaller 30-gallon tank or something. So you want to check your nozzle, make sure it's round and small. If it's a block, if it's gotten like 2 times bigger, it's using 2 times more air. So you need basically 2 times the air tank, right? So that what happens then is your foot pedal doesn't work because there's not enough air going to the pedal because it's all coming out of your nozzle. So if you step in the pedal and blast and you let go of the pedal and it's continually blasting, chances are your air compressor is on and it's making a loud noise. And then also your nozzle likely is worn. So first place to check. If you have any other questions, contact Iconics Imaging. We'd be happy to work with you on any technical information and get you going on machine maintenance and be ready because we're going to get busy again. Have a blast.
All right. Man, I love that song. I never get sick of it. Do you? Oh, Darren, I can't hear you.
All right, can you hear me now?
There we go. Yep.
All right, sorry about that.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
Yeah, I love Motley Crue. I love the old days. Great rock bands back in the day. So that song is a classic.
So it looks like we got a question right away.
All right.
So we'll jump into those. Somebody wants to know, can the dust get thrown into the regular garbage, or is there a special way to dispose of dust or abrasive or anything that we need to know there?
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, I've run into a few accounts over the years that have put the dust back in the machine. Okay, that's a complete no-no. All right, that'll just create a mess. So do not put the grit, or the dust rather, back into your abrasive pot. All right. So as far as the proper way to dispose of the dust is just take a Walmart bag, garbage bag, depends on how much is in there. I usually put a garbage bag because I never know what I'm going to get into. And, just hold it really tight around the opening where the dust is going to fall through and let it drop. The dust can be put into your standard garbage. It's considered nuisance dust or traditional dust from outside kind of deal. So there's no chemicals, nothing harmful. So yeah, put in the garbage can.
All right, great. It looks like John here has a question, and John would like to know, our CrystalBlast Elite is a few years old and doesn't have that toggle operated air vibration system. Is that available as a retrofit? That's a great question.
Oh yeah. Yeah, unfortunately that feature was added on maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. It was from feedback from customers that didn't hit the toggle or the reverse pulse enough throughout their day. So we had to come up with another option so people could continue working through their busy times. So can that toggle be added on? Now, I'm not the direct manufacturer of the machine. They're made by Media Blast in Brea, California. Is there a way? Likely. Now, to be able to do it in your confine of your business or home, probably not. It would have to be shipped to the manufacturer and have that put on at the factory. There is a lot involved. There's a solenoid that goes above the filter to open and close. There's a long pipe. If you see on the picture on my right here, that's what's put inside the machine, and the air hose is wrapped around. So there's quite a bit of plumbing involved, a lot of disassemble. So I wouldn't recommend putting it on there. I would just recommend hitting the reverse pulse, because that's going to do the same amount of work. It'll clean your filter just as good. Just got to do it a little more often. So hit that reverse pulse.
All right, reverse pulse. All right, next question. They wanted to know, how often should I replace my nozzle? I've had this a few times, but it's always good knowledge for anyone.
Yeah, that's a great question. The nozzle is the most consumable or wearable part on your Sandcarver machine, whether it's a siphon or pressure pot. The nozzles have a general life. We put tungsten carbide on all of our machines as a standard, and that's going to last, depends on your grit size, your abrasive type, and what you're blasting and what your air pressure is at. So a lot of variables, but we do have like an average formula with 180 silicon carbide, 30 psi. See where I'm going with this? And then blasting glass, those kind of things. You'll get between 8 to 10 hours out of a tungsten carbide. There's other grades of nozzles that do last longer, like tungsten crystalline. It's a different material, more compact, better materials that'll last longer. You generally get about 60 hours with the same formula. So those are the two types. Now, when to know to replace it, that's when the nozzle opening looks anything but round. So if it gets to be a keyhole look, or I call it like a fuzzy ball, anything that's got little nicks in there, that's when it should be replaced, because those little nicks or little keyholes are going to pass air through, just air, no abrasive. Abrasive comes out like a circle, like a tornado. So if there's an air pocket, air shoots out. And if there's direct air hitting your stencil, chances are your stencil is not going to hold up and it might blow off. So it's important to look at your nozzle daily, maybe weekly, depending on your volume, just to make sure you don't have that
bad opening. Think of it like a garden hose. If you cut off the end of your garden hose, the water goes everywhere because it's not circle, in good shape anymore. So
it's a great
that's
analogy,
a good question.
Doctor.
That's a good question.
Yeah. All right. Another question here. What spare parts would you recommend having on hand? Typical wear parts, more or less. What are some parts that wear out easily or that you want to have?
Yeah, well, the abrasive nozzle, that's number one on my list. Number two would likely be the dust collector filter, especially those of you that haven't been cleaning the filter. I'd have one of those on hand. I'd also recommend maybe there's a foot valve on all of our machines called a media valve, and that opens and closes, every time you step on the foot pedals. So over time, that'll wear. So I do recommend having a replacement bladder and maybe a core, depending on what your media valve looks like. So think of your Sandcarver machine like the automobile that you have in your garage. You want to replace a filter on hand. You want a replacement spark plug, replacement oil, replacement brake pads if you're a mechanic. That's all the Sandcarver is. So your nozzle is like your spark plug. Your oil is like your abrasive. Your filter is like a filter. So if you think of it like that, I think it helps to know what to have on hand. And once you start blasting for a long period, a year, 2 years down the road, you'll have like little notes on what you've ordered. At our company too, we do have a list of all your parts that you've ordered from us in the past. So I'll look at my customers and notice that they've ordered like 2 foot pedals in a year. And I go, that's not right. So then I'll talk to them and figure out why they've ordered 2 foot pedals. And chances are it's probably a air compressor problem that it was, not a foot pedal. So that's where, as reps, we do help diagnose a lot of your issues based upon what parts you order over the course of the machine's life. But again, there's not much to go around with these machines. They're well-built tanks, just a nozzle, filter, maybe a bladder. And I know people order a lot of gloves and gauntlets, things like that, because they do use the gloves and gauntlets as a resist that goes around the glass. So with abrasive hitting a rubber sleeve inside the machine, that rubber is going to eventually wear as well. So we do sell a lot of gauntlets and gloves for that reason. But yeah, like I said, talk to your rep and we'll get you a good list of items that would work in your first 3 months, first 2 years. And then again, monitor your usage so we can save you money and time.
All right. We'll move on to the next question here. Looks like Iconics Imaging is chiming in. We're getting some feed from customers that are writing in. Mike would like to know, do you recommend an ambient air dryer? Can you explain to us what an ambient air dryer means too?
Yeah. Yeah, great question, Mike. Ambient air dryers, what that means is ambient air conditions, which is 68 to 72 degrees. What that means is that's the ultimate or best environment for abrasive and air to mix. So you don't get any humidity, you don't get hot air, you don't get chilled air is fine, but you just got to keep that temperature of the air at a lower degree, so that way your abrasive never gets damp or wet down the road. So what an ambient air dryer does is it's got a little windmill in there, like a little chamber that circulates the air like a little fan, and it cools it down to ambient air conditions, which is 68 to 72 degrees. So that way all the air feeding into your pressure pot is going to be a good environment. So the abrasive doesn't live on that hot, steamy air that gets it all wet and damp. So those of you that have had wet abrasive, maybe they work in an environment where it's very humid, doors are open a lot, or maybe their air compressor is very small, where they're feeding a lot of hot air because the compressor can't keep up. So that's going to basically create an environment in your pot that's going to be like a jungle. It's going to be very damp. So the ambient air dryer is recommended if you have a small air compressor tank or if you're in a very high humidity environment.
Good stuff, doctor. Next question. Does the separator reclaimer wear out, and can it be replaced if needed?
That's a great question. I can speak for the Sandcarver machines that we sell, like the CrystalBlast Elite, for example, the one that we showed in the video, the one behind me on my right. That's got a replaceable reclaimer on the machine. It's not welded in like I've seen on some machines out there. So yes, you can replace it. Now, do you need to replace it often? That's, again, based on volume. Now, I bet run into customers that have had their machines 20 years, never had to replace it once. And then I have some that may reclaim it or replace it every 5 to 10 years. So the beauty of replacing the reclaimer is it's working, right? It's separating the dust from the abrasive. So you got to look at it the positive way is that you're saving money on abrasive over the long term, which is a lot more expensive than replacing a reclaimer. So yeah, you can replace your reclaimer on our Pro, our Elite, the Summit, and the Pioneer. All of our CrystalBlast lines, reclaimers can be replaced, but again, it's not a common wear part. Like I said, it's almost a gratitude that you have to replace it because you know it's been working over these years. Okay.
All right. So we got another question here. I'm using 180 grit size for sandblasting trophies and glassware. Do I need to change the grit size for blasting fine crystal?
180 silicon carbide is a good one to start with. I do recommend that grit for everything, especially in these Dr. Fine Grit videos. We've done halftones, we've done deep carving with a 180 grit. We've done Yetis, we've done every item on the planet I've done with 180 grit. It works. Now, when I hear fine detail, I mean, I may want to see some of the print, maybe if it's 6 point, 4 point, I have to know a little bit more variable on what size specifically you're looking to do. But 180 grit's a good starting point. And keep in mind, when you're hitting abrasive at your glass or whatever it is, especially metal, that abrasive is going to break down. So eventually that grit's going to break down to 190, 200, 210, and keep going finer and finer. That machine's going to reclaim all that grit. So you might be at 220 grit within 6 months. You might be at that number, could be any time. And generally you'll be able to tell when you sand carve. You'll notice the etching is going to take maybe a little bit less time. That's because the grit's finer, but the carving is going to take longer with the finer grits. So that's kind of what happens as your Brit or abrasive breaks down.
Great suggestion. It looks like we got a couple of people. This must be a common thing. They want to know, how long does the filter last if not covered? We haven't covered this yet, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, that's a great question, Laura. The filters on our Sandcarver machine will run as long as the operator, how they maintain it, right? We've discussed 2 different methods on our CrystalBlast line, how to clean the filter. Now, if you don't clean it, let's say you go 6 months and you've been doing production every day, that filter is going to be caked on abrasive or dust. You'll take it out and you won't even see any filter looks at all. It's going to look like a big cloud of sugar cookies. So to get the dust off, you'd have to probably manually clean it at that point. But if you clean your filter, as we recommend, hit the reverse pulse once a day at least or more. In that case, you might get 2 years, maybe 5 years, maybe even 10 years. It's going to come down to, again, your maintenance, how big the filter is. Our machines have either a 45 square foot filter or 110 square feet, and we have a 220 square foot filter on our bigger machines. Some of them have dual filtration, so they have 2 filters instead of 1 in the machine. So generally speaking, I would give your filter a once a year annual average. I tell customers that do a lot of production at like the holiday season or maybe the award season, like it typically is this time of year, is to replace the filter before you get busy. So you don't have to change a filter in the middle of a big production run. So, and a way to look for a filter if it's getting bad is when your cabinet's getting dusty. I use this analogy. If you're having to use your hand as a windshield wiper, those of you know what I'm talking about, where you're having to clean the inside of your glass because it's getting foggy or full of dust. If you're doing that, that means your filter is clogged. It needs a good cleaning. So I hope that helps.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, looks like we've got
No.
we've got another great question here from Scott. Scott wants to say, thank you for the tip on doing the reverse pulse multiple times. I was not aware of that.
Okay.
Is there an easy way to know when to add blast media or abrasive media?
Yeah. Back to the change in oil in a car analogy. When you do that, you get a better car, right? It's going to last longer. It's going to be more efficient if you do that, which means changing out your abrasive completely. Now, realistically, a lot of us don't do it that way, and that's okay. I mean, if you add in a little bit of abrasive to your existing older abrasive, that's fine if it's silicon carbide abrasive, because carbide, it never goes dull. So it's going to be sharp. So it gets into that detail fast, even though it's broken down. Now, know when to add blast media. That's a good question. I talked in the video about the dust collector cap. You take off, you pull out a pound or so of dust, then you add a pound of abrasive. That's what people generally do because it's really easy to remember. On the other hand, I like to add a cup, like a coffee cup full of abrasive every day if I blast every day. 1 cup a day. And it's like a cup of Joe. Just put it in the machine. That way you always have fresh abrasive mixed in with your older abrasive. So that way your mesh size doesn't get too fine where it doesn't carve. You have a little bit of the coarser to mix in, and that'll work fine. As long as you're sticking within the 180 to 220 mesh parameter.
All right, great. Another question here. 110 coil cartridge filter or HEPA bags. What is better in a blast cabinet dust collector? I've never heard of HEPA bags in a dust collector. Is that common?
Yeah. Well, HEPA is common in the air filtration, like in your house. The HEPA doesn't really qualify with sand carving as much because of the particle size it needs to meet to, because we're not maintaining the machines to a T. We're not, meeting all these specs. So the filter cartridges are going to work out very well in your process because once they're easy to clean, you just shoot air at it and it shakes all the dust off. The filter size is dramatically bigger than a HEPA. So you're looking at 110 square feet of coverage. Most of the bags just cover a smaller filter. So the size of the filter does matter in this case because it's going to last longer, more coverage, and it's going to be a better overall system. Now, we do have some machines out there that do add a HEPA filter on top of a cartridge filter, so you can do both. I'd recommend maybe that if you're doing a large volume of work, where you're doing 200 pieces a day, for example. You have a shop that needs to be spick and span. Let's say you do crystal. And so in that case, I would recommend a HEPA filter in addition to a cartridge filter. But if you're a hobbyist or a person like doing a few jobs here and there, HEPA is it's not needed. Our machines are very clean, efficient. They're not going to leave any particles in the air. And that's because of our reclaimer system, and that's because of the cartridge filter, and also because of the 100 change per second, and also because of the impeller size, the blower. It's just all that equation is going to keep your air just as clean as a HEPA.
All right, great. Next question here. Laura would like to know, do I need to drain my air compressor? If yes, how often? That's a good question.
Yeah. Yeah, we got some good ones today. A lot of maintenance out there. Yeah, you want to drain your air compressor right underneath the pot, or we call it the tank. There's a little, like a spigot. And what you do is you open that up and you'll hear air leaking out or pushing the water out of the tank at that point. So you want to have a pan or some kind of, dish underneath to catch the water from your air compressor tank. As far as how often to empty it, that depends on how often it's running. If you hear your air compressor running, like the motor just constantly all afternoon, chances are that tank's going to be probably a cup, maybe 2 cups of water. And that's because you're not allowing that air to cool down in your tank. You're using it right away. So it's just, oil might get mixed in there too. So you got to be cautious of that compressor motor running quite a bit, because that could lead to problems. So empty the tank once a day for starters, and then just kind of go from there. If it's not gonna, or nothing in there at the end of the day, and so check on it once a week.
All right. And just a reminder out there to everyone watching, we'd love to hear your thoughts on what you want to see in the next episode. And if you just look at the bottom of the screen and see what's scrolling, there's some topics there to choose from. So we'd love to see what you want to see in episode 9. Doctor, back to the questions. Be fantastic. 4. How often do you purge your system?
Great question from Be Fantastic 4. I love that. The purging of your system, that I'm assuming here, because we use this term when there's erratic abrasive flow, where you get a large burst of abrasive, then it kind of minimizes to almost air only at that point. So we use this term purging. And what that does is basically flush out your system. It's an easy little task, and you do this with CrystalBlast 3624 or any of our other machines, but it was very common with the older CrystalBlast machines. And that was due to the design of the hopper. So you don't have to do it as often with our newer machines. But again, if you've got a 3624, this is what you would do to purge. You would actually take the nozzle holder off the hose. You would open your abrasive choke valve, which is down below here, the blue lever. You point that at the hose coming in. So that means your air is open, bypassing the pressure pot completely. So all the air is going to go from this direction, wrap around, and come through the choke valve at a very fast all air pressure rate. There's nothing pushing from the pot at that point. So it's going to be air only. And it's going to push through our mixing valve, push that abrasive, punch out any kind of clog if there was one in there. Then it's going to go through the media valve, punch anything through there, and it's going to flow through your end of your hose. Generally, you want to be at 30 psi when you start this, because your compressor might be too small to accommodate a purge when you're blasting, without a nozzle on. So 30 psi is a good start. Now, if that doesn't do the trick, increase your regulator up to 40, 50, up to 60 psi, and that'll punch out any kind of clog, or I call them sand dune. Punch it out within like 10 seconds. So what you do is just kind of pump on the pedal, pump on it for like 5 seconds, let go. Because again, your compressor may not be able to keep up. So I don't want your compressor to die on you. So just run it for up to 5 seconds, let go of the foot pedal. If it might fix it right then. So that's what purging is. We have actually a diagram and a step-by-step how to do that. We could send you on an email. So just send us an email and we'll get that info off to you.
Thanks, Doctor.
Yeah.
Next question, Carl has typed in and wants to know, what is the profile of the machine? Is ventilation needed? Is this for all Sandcarvers or for elites?
Yeah, that's a great question. What is the profile of the machine? So I don't know if they're talking about the abrasive hopper profile. This machine can be sat down at, so you can raise the foot pedal, sit at your favorite bar stool, and basically step on the pedal and lean into the machine and sand carve. So you can do that throughout your day. So it's got that kind of profile to either stand or sit. As far as the ventilation, none of our machines require any ventilation outdoors. They're all self-ventilating. What I like about the Elite model is it's got up here, this is where your impeller is, 11.5 inch, pretty big one. It's going to blow out your air into a silencer and come down and empty out the back of the machine towards the floor. So that's the kind of confidence we have in the Elite. If we're venting the machine to a floor, which air rises, right? So it's going to come back into your breathing room area. So that's how confident we are that this machine is going to keep clean as long as you maintain the machine correctly. That with the tips we talked about. So again, no ventilation required, and very easy.
All right, great. And it looks like some people are voting in here on what episode they want to see next. So far, I've seen doming as a consensus, so we'll have to do a video on that.
I got a little doming up here, I think.
Maybe we'll have to also sand carve that little image of your emoji character.
Oh,
We're gonna show people that. They haven't seen that yet, so I think they get a kick out of it.
Next time.
Well, if you haven't voted already, make sure to do that. We want to get your opinions because we want to give you content that you need to see. So make sure you do that. It looks like the questions are slowing down now. So just a reminder out there to everyone to check out our products and more information at www.iconicsimaging.com. And make sure that you're subscribing to Dr. Feingrit's channel. I'm sure that most of you are, but you can find that on YouTube. We are on episode 8 today. So there's 7 other episodes if you haven't seen them already. Dr. Feingrit, do you have any final thoughts that you want to give us? And just let us know what you think here for maintenance.
Customers can always email their rep, email myself with any technical tips, any kind of maintenance scheduling. We've been doing that for years. But one thing I wanted to add out there is, with the times we've been in the last few months, a lot of our machines have been idle. I know a lot of you are starting to get the machine out and doing some work with it, which is great. I talked to a lot of people throughout the process, and a lot of people are excited to get back into it. But one thing I do want to mention is if you run into an issue where the abrasive flow doesn't come out correctly because it's been idle for 2 months, maybe 3 months, what I want to mention there is take out abrasive. If you had when people kind of shut down back in March, we were super busy getting into award season. Everybody was just flying. Okay. So you probably had a full pressure pot and you're just going crazy. Now, if you haven't used a machine for a long period, the abrasive settles. Okay. So it'll go from the top of the pot and kind of settle like beach sand or like sugar. If you ever know sugar, you put a bunch in there and over time it settles and it becomes like a rock. Like sugar cubes. Abrasive could do that too. So empty out 5 to 10 pounds of abrasive and you'll notice your abrasive flow is going to be a lot better. And once you start back into that cycle, add the rest of that grit that you just took out and you're back to normal. So that's one little tip I want to mention because that's going to happen a lot, I think, with people that haven't blasted for several months when they're just doing so good for a while. So think of it like your stabilizer in your gasoline. It just keeps it going. Any questions, again, contact us, please. We're here to help you.
Yes, please get a hold of all of our guys. They're great resources and they're here to help. This is what they work for. So they want to help you succeed, especially in these tough times. It is tough out there for sure. Um,
Oh yeah.
just a few updates and news for everyone. So if you hadn't already registered, the NBM breakaway session number 1 did commence just last week, and it was a really great session. So we are an exhibitor at that breakaway session. You can check out. We did do a virtual training class, so that was really cool. We did an hour-long video for that. So if you haven't checked it out, you can go to the NBM show and register still until June 19th. Those videos and content are available. With upcoming stuff, we are participating in the NBM breakaway session number 2. However, our other division, Icon Art Custom Stencils, they are joining us today for Wisdom Wednesday. So thanks, Icon Art, for asking questions and participating. So they will be representing Iconics and exhibiting for NBM breakaway session number 2. So be sure to register, and you can find out what all those kits are about. Darren, it looks like we do have a quick question here from Ernest. If you want to answer this, Ernest would like to know, how do you replace the media on your machines? I don't think we've done a video on this yet, unless it's on the Iconics Imaging YouTube channel, but maybe you could answer that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Ernest. I actually did a video on this maybe, I don't know, over 10 years ago. So it's the media is what Ernest is referring to there is sand or the abrasive in your pot. Go back to this illustration because that's what I have. But there's several ways to replace the media. The most common way is to go underneath your mixing valve, media valve, underneath your pressure pot, and there's a nut underneath the mixing valve. Now, that nut is reverse thread, so it's lefty or righty-loosey, I should say. So go right to take the nut off, have a pan underneath it, and let the abrasive fall via gravity. You might have to use a rubber mallet to kind of shake up the pot a little bit to get the sand to come out quicker. Because keep in mind, there's a anti-siphon tube going across that mixing valve that's going to stop the abrasive from falling. So it's got to kind of hit the pipe and then go around. So that's one way to do it. The secondary way is on the side, there's a pressure pot side port. It's exclusive on our CrystalBlast machines. Again, it's a 3/4 inch nut. Take the nut off. There's a little assembly to pull out. It takes a little maneuvering to get it out. And there's a video on our Iconics website page that'll walk you through that process. So once you get that out, then you can go in there with your hands, or you go in there with a shop vac and just suck out all that abrasive. That's the quickest way to do it and the best, because you can get in there and clean the whole thing. So that would be the ways you would empty the abrasive in your pressure pot. But before you do that, it wouldn't be a bad idea to call your representative to see if there's a reason why you're having to do that. It might be something we can help you with, because that's not a normal thing to be doing.
We could probably make a newer updated video too.
Yeah.
So Ernest, stay tuned. We'll try and get a new video out there of that. I'm sure some of our blasters probably could use a new abrasive change. So so otherwise, if you need to give us a call, if you have any questions, you just want to know how we're doing, we'd just be happy to say hello and chat and see how you're doing too. So check out our website, iconicsimaging.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We're out there on all channels. So it was great that all of you could join us today. We really appreciate all the questions, because your questions, help answer other people's questions too. I'm sure that you're not the only one that has that question, and maybe some are afraid to ask, or don't want to sound silly, but there's no stupid question. So well, thanks everyone. Dr. Feingrit, you're just awesome as usual. Just a bundle of joy and knowledge. So I love working with you on these.
Yeah, these are fun.
All right. Well,
everyone out there, have a blast.
Yep.
Let's do this.
And blast with confidence.
And carve with confidence.
Carve with confidence. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks.
See ya. See you next week.